You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 185. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where we talk about what really happens when you take a break from drinking. And it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done. I'm Anna, coach to high achievers who are done waking up with regret and ready to feel in control around alcohol. If you've ever wondered what your life could look like with less wine and more you're in the right place. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. All right, so want to tell you a couple of quick things before we get started on today's topic. I mentioned this previously, but I have on the 24th of June, and it's only going to be up for 3 days until the 27th of June, I have a free video training that's going to drop, and you're going to want to get your hands on it. It's very practical, it's very specific, it's something you can take and use, and it's on the topic of 10 summer drinking mistakes and how to avoid them, right? This is all part of my push this summer. I'm going to be rolling something else out where I want us to be able to drink 50% less or more without giving up garden drinks, without avoiding all those all-inclusive resorts, without struggling on vacation or any of that stuff. So that's coming. I will drop a link to that in the show notes. You're going to want to be on the list to get access to that, because then I'm going to put it out in the world and then it will disappear in 3 days. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which is perhaps maybe even more exciting, yes, there's so much happening in my world this summer, is I have a massively exciting update coming to the Off Switch app. So if you have my app, which is there to help you construct drink plans, it's more than that actually. It's more than just counting drinks. The whole point of the app, which is connected to my book, The Off Switch, if you do not yet have it, grab yourself a copy. But this is all about changing our relationship with our plans, building trust, understanding, what we're looking for. It is so much more than counting drinks, right? So that's in the app. But I'm going to be soft launching a wonderful new aspect to this app, which is truly exciting. I am not going to be publicizing this for a little bit. It's just going to be in there. It's only going to be accessible to the people who already have the app. So if you do not have my app, you can get it on Android or you can get it for Apple. You're going to want to get a copy of the app, download it. You want to start using it. And then at some point in the near future, a fantastic new feature is going to be included that is going to really change things. But as I say, you need to have the app. I'm not going to be publicizing that for new people. It's just going to be available to those who already have the app. So you're going to want to hot foot it over there. All right. So end of advertisements here. Today, let's get on with our topic, which is moderation possible? Well, this is something I get asked a lot. And I really thought we would tackle it, right? So I'm going to treat this question, for real. Is moderation possible, or is it just some fantasy that we cling to when we're not really ready to completely quit, right? Completely give up the booze. Is moderation actually harder than abstaining for good? And is it worth the mental load, right? Because some planning and some degree of being intentional, I always say to people, there's some level of work, quote unquote work, involved in being intentional. Is it worth it? So let's get into it. Let's talk about this. So firstly, let's start with the obvious question, which is moderation possible? I'm going to answer the question. Yes, it is possible, but it is not possible or right for everyone, right? This is not something where you just decide you want to drink in moderation and everything's fine and dandy. There are people who gain what I will call true freedom and peace by removing alcohol completely from their lives, right? This is especially powerful for those who identify as alcoholic, where abstinence is often the clearest, kindest, and for them, the most powerful path forward. And what I want to say clearly, if that is you or someone you love, I see you, and that is not failure, it is wisdom, right? We always want to tap in to what serves us most. And for some people, that is full abstinence, it is full sobriety. But what about the people I work with? The people I work with who are highly functioning, high achievers, often super fit, right? Eat healthily, are really very smart, on top of their game, and very, very successful, at least sort of outwardly and on the surface. But there is just this one part, really, like one jigsaw piece that doesn't fit. And what happens is wine sneaks in at the edges. Right? It sneaks in after the kids are in bed, after the board meeting, right? The relief of getting through the board meeting, after the world says, come on, you've earned it, right? You've done a good thing there. And slowly, that earned it glass, that reward glass, starts calling the shots. And these are the people, these are particularly when I work with women in this variety, these are the people who do not resonate at all with the all or nothing model, right? You just gotta go sober. If you have any kind of problem with alcohol, you have to go sober. And for them, and if you're listening to my podcast, likely for you too, then yes, moderation is often very possible. But I want to be clear. This is not about being quote unquote good enough to control it. This is really about understanding what you want and why. That's really where we have to start. Because why you want to moderate your consumption of usually wine or maybe beer matters more than how you do it. And this is where we get really honest with ourselves. If you are asking this question, right, is moderation even possible? I want you to ask yourself, are you trying to moderate? Are you seeking moderation because you cannot imagine life without wine? Or are you seeking it because you want the freedom to enjoy it without it running the show? These are two very different places to come from. Now listen, in my case, I was very much in that first camp. I just couldn't imagine life without wine. So if that's where you are, that's an okay place to start. But we just want to ask, we want to think about, if that is the thought that's running the show, what does that mean for how life will be afterwards? Because if you are still emotionally hooked in a way that if wine feels like your only way to unwind, to connect, to reward yourself, to just dampen down, numb those, escape the feelings, then moderation is going to feel like a constant battle, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you're a hopeless case. It just means your desire wouldn't have shifted yet. Whenever we've got big, dramatic emotions involved with drinking, that's where the focus needs to be to start with. But when you can get to a place of neutrality, whether it's just a drink, right? It's not a lifeline. It's not a way to feel great. It's just a drink, because a drink sounds like a good idea. Then everything changes, right? And getting to that place, well, that is the work. That's what I teach. I don't teach you how to count drinks, although that is an element of it, right? Hence, I'm talking about the app, but it is not the be all and end all. It's about learning to listen to your own voice again, to even tap in to know that you have a voice on this. And it's about rebuilding trust, which is the most precious thing when you trust yourself. It's about planning and choosing on purpose. That's the whole point of the planning, so that you're no longer making decisions from exhaustion or shame or maybe an F it moment, referring to last week's podcast. Now, what I want to offer next is that moderation isn't about less than. It's really a bridge. It's a bridge to a different kind of freedom. And this is something people just don't talk about enough. Moderation is not a weak-willed compromise, right? It is often the beginning of something bigger. Now, some of my clients, they come into me and they start saying, I just want to drink less. I don't entirely know how that looks. I just want to drink less, right? Whatever I'm doing right now isn't working. And then I see quite frequently not all the time, but quite frequently. 6 months later, they might be saying, look, I actually don't want it anymore. I know I can moderate. They're not scared. They know they can go out and have just a glass of wine. They know that if they have a plan to be alcohol free, that's what they're going to do because it's who they are, right? They're not worried about any of that. They just don't really see the point anymore. Right? It's a little bit like are you going to have one bite of a biscuit? Why am I going to have one bite? I mean, what does that do for me? I'm either going to have the biscuit or I'm not. And they decide, look, I just don't think I want this anymore. And when this happens, it's a very natural thing that happens. And it's not because I told them to. It's not because they followed a set of rules. And it's not because, we have some brand new thought about sobriety. Again, I don't use the word sober. We don't talk about that. We don't day count any of that in my work. When this happens, it's because the person's identity has shifted. They have stopped seeing wine as a part of who they are, and they have started choosing something new. That's what I mean when I say moderation can be a bridge, not just the destination. Sometimes it can be the destination. You want to moderate and you want to have wine now and then, and you're very happy with that. And I find that for people who are really maybe quite passionate about different vintages and things, yeah, you can do that. But it can also be a bridge. This is not about restricting or white knuckling. And I know you hear that a lot, but I really want you to think about this in terms of your identity. It's not the action you're taking, but the identity. This is about seeing yourself differently. This is about really realizing I actually truly love waking up clear-headed. I actually really love being able to drive myself home, right? There's nothing that's far more important to me than, being able to have a couple of drinks. And it's not that they can't have a couple, they know how to do that, but it's like, I just don't want that anymore. Here's the other angle to this, and I always make very clear. You do not have to decide once, you have to sort of sign on the dotted line as a forever decision. You get to re-choose. We all get to re-choose all elements of our life. And I want to say this loud and clear. You do not have to lock yourself into one way of drinking or not drinking for life. You get to evolve. You get to explore. You get to try something. You get to redecide if it stops feeling good. Some of the most powerful results I've seen have come from women who gave themselves permission to just try. Right? I'm just going to be curious. I'm just going to do this. I'm really going to sink into this work with Anna. I'm going to let moderation be the next right step without making it the final one. Maybe it's the final one. Maybe it isn't. And maybe that's where you are right now. You don't quite know what you want. But if you know that what you currently have isn't working, that's a powerful place to start. That is enough to start. You do not need to wait for a dramatic rock bottom. You do not need to explain your choices to anyone. You don't need to be perfect. And that's important because people sometimes say, well, I was so imperfect. People, when they first work with me, have often tried, a dozen things or more before coming to me. And sometimes they say, maybe I just didn't want it enough before, right? We can decide that was just a thought. What I really want you to come home to in yourself is, if you get to the point where you want something different, and are you willing to try, and are you willing to work for that? So, is moderation possible? For some people, absolutely yes. For you, only you can answer that. But if your spirit is whispering, I want more, in terms of you just don't want to be where you are right now, really listen to that. If you're ready to build something new, whether that is some form of moderation, right? That means less in one sitting, drinking less frequently, or take it or leave it, however that is, right? There is not one size fits all here. Or maybe you really want to go alcohol free, you want alcohol free living. Maybe you are, right now you've been very much been able to manage moderation, but you want to take it to the next step. And you don't kind of want the sober or nothing approach, and you don't know how to do it, right? That's the kind of thing I help with. Or maybe you just want less chaos in your evenings because you think whenever there's alcohol involved, it's a bit chaotic. I can help you with this. My one-on-one coaching is personalized to you. I have a big body of work, but I will pluck out the components that are relevant to you, which is what makes it smoother and faster. It is totally non-judgmental, and it is built around your real life, not around some rigid program. So if you want to explore whether we're a fit, book a free call. I will not strong arm you into anything you don't want. I do not work with everybody who books a call. I only work with people when we know when we both think we're in a good match, right? So there is absolutely zero pressure. It's a safe place to talk about what you want and what's getting in the way. And you will leave the call more educated in this area than when you came into it, right? I will leave you with the plan. You do that plan, you will get the result you want, but that all starts with a call. So go ahead and do that. You'll find the link in the show notes. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. If this episode hit home and you're ready to explore what life could look like with alcohol in the back seat, let's talk. I work with people one-on-one who are ready to create the relationship with alcohol that works for them, so they feel powerful in their choices and at peace with their habits. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on book a call, or grab one of the free guides in the show notes to this episode. And if this podcast is helping you, a rating or review goes a long way to help others find this work too.